Hi, Scott Sloan Show, News Radio 700 WLW. We've seen how Amazon has upended retail, logistics, heck, the grocery business. Look at Kroger and Whole Foods and what's happening there. So Amazon, Berkshire Hathaway, and J.P. Morgan Chase are now all getting together for this trifecta of healthcare goodness, and the goal here is to reduce costs and help improve healthcare and satisfaction for healthcare for their employees. Seth Denson, president and co-founder of GDP Advisors. He's a healthcare insurance strategist. Joining me to talk about if this is indeed a game changer. Seth, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Scott. Thanks for having me on.
We spend more than twice the average person on healthcare than any other industrialized country, and we still, by all metrics, the sickest of them all. We're getting sicker at younger ages, largely of things we do to ourselves in our lifestyle, responsible for about 3/4 of the cost of our health insurance. So healthcare costs continue to go up. The system itself is unsustainable. It is it's embarrassing and it's a mess, and it really is the cog that slows down our great economic engine in America, despite how good things are. They could be so much better if we had adequate health care and got this thing figured out. So tell me about this plan, and is it an industrial game changer in that context?
You know, I'm hopeful that it's a game changer. We've been advocating for years that something needs to change, and obviously Washington has done nothing to really improve the overall process of health care. The biggest, I think, myth out there right now is that it is about the health insurance premiums, and while you're absolutely right, health insurance premiums are at an astronomical rate. The reality is that health insurance premiums are a derivative of the actual cost of health care, and you said it perfectly in that our costs to access the health care market are higher than anywhere else in the industrialized world. And so until we start to take a more strategic approach to managing the cost and driving down the cost of health care, health insurance premiums will continue to rise. So what I'm excited about seeing and what Amazon and Berkshire Hathaway and J.P. Morgan are attempting to do here, even though they've been very clear, they really haven't given a lot of details about what they're going to do, is that when you bring outside business savvy into a competitive marketplace, or let's call it a not competitive marketplace that we hope will become more competitive, we have the opportunity to see the needle shift and things to start to move down in the actual cost of delivering health care here in the United States.
Yeah, but you know what the problem with that is? I mean, that's in a perfect world, I think, Seth. Both of us live in the real world, and we've seen government, specifically bureaucrats, elected officials, and the like, that throw roadblocks up to this kind of let's say that Amazon does what they say they're going to do, and they get together, and all of a sudden it's like, wow, they come up with this new healthcare paradigm that winds up improving healthcare for all their employees and reduces their costs. That's something that other companies would love to duplicate. The problem is that we've got lawmakers that are beholden to special interests, much like you've heard areas of the country where Uber goes in, and they try to stop Uber because it's interfering with cab drivers. But, you know, Uber's much better than a cab, obviously. Or what we saw with, for example, Jeff Sessions in the opioid crisis, where the government's actually helping continue to make it worse for people, not better, because special interests line their pockets. How would this be any different? Actually, it'd probably be the worst scenario because there's significantly more money in health care than the other two.
No doubt that there's a lot of money there, and that every time we see in the industry somebody try to step up and do something to change it, bureaucrats get in the way of that, right?
There's a lot of money in keeping things the same.
No doubt, and there's a lot of special interest there that's really trying to drive to keep things the same. I mean, if we think about it, just kind of step back. Since the passage of the Affordable Care Act, the healthcare stocks, the average stock price increase of the largest publicly traded healthcare providers is up over 200%. And remember, the Affordable Care Act was meant to drive down the cost of health insurance premiums, yet the stock price is up over 200%. So going back to your original question of what happens if, and can the bureaucrats get in the way of this? Well, there's no doubt. And what I've said for a long time is as long as we are trying to solve things at a macro level, the industries themselves are very powerful, and they will try to squash it. What I am loving to see about what Amazon and Berkshire Hathaway and J.P. Morgan are doing here is they're saying, hey, listen, this is for our employees. This is for our business. We're not going to the open market with this. This is about us trying to drive down the overall cost of accessing health care for our employees. And so for years, under the Department of Labor and ERISA statutes, employers have the right to self-fund their health insurance plans. Okay, and this is a long-standing law. And so what these groups are doing is they're effectively just saying, we're going to self-fund this, and we're going to go in and start to manage and negotiate the actual cost of health care to drive down that self-funding aspect of health insurance. And what I would say to you is that there are companies out there that are actually already doing this. So we work with a company out of Philadelphia called Pareto Captive Services, and what they do is they aggregate employer risk in the self-funded market for employers all the way down to 50 employees. I mean, so we're not talking about the critical mass numbers that Amazon and J.P. Morgan and Berkshire Hathaway have. These are smaller employers, and what they're doing is they're collectively aggregating their risk amongst the masses of those employers to drive down costs, and we're seeing it. These organizations are seeing flat trend over the last 5 years and average renewals of under 4%. So it's out there, but it's been at a micro level. This announcement from these larger corporations is just bringing to light this opportunity to do something that the law already allows.
He's a health insurance strategist. His name is Seth Denson, president and co-founder of GDP Advisors, talking about how Amazon is teaming up with Berkshire Hathaway, J.P. Morgan Chase. We're talking big money players there to form a new healthcare company, and the goal there is to get better health care. It significantly reduced costs for their employees, and the ripple effect of this, if they're successful, is going to affect pretty much everyone listening, and your costs should go down. I should say this, though. I mean, they're looking at what they call technological solutions. Probably doesn't surprise you, Seth, when you're talking about Jeff Bezos and Amazon, that they will try to come up with a free market solution to this thing in this joint venture. And they basically said, look, it's, you know what, we're going to let our people work the problem, and there's no financial restraints on this whatsoever. Just try and figure out a way to make this thing happen. It sounds to me like it's in its infancy. No one really has a grand idea, but they're going to think tank this thing and come up with one.
No doubt, and you know, the great thing here is that what Amazon and Berkshire Hathaway and J.P. Morgan have done here is created a great little beta test that they have absolute control over, right? So they're in control of the aspect of delivering health care access to their employees. They've come out and said this is only for our employees, and they haven't given any time frame as to how long this will be going on, when it will roll out, and how it will work. That, to me, screams, hey, this is a beta test.
Yeah, right.
And if that ends up working, and I have optimism that it will, because again, we're seeing it happen at a micro level across the country already, then the markets open up, and Jeff Bezos and you know, Warren Buffett and the others, they start to say, okay, how do we take this to the open market?
Right. So it's going to be Amazon Doctor pretty soon before you know it.
You never know. And the one thing that we have in place right now that could serve as somewhat of a barrier to market is that while the federal government oversees the largest aspect of the healthcare delivery system, because it oversees through the Department of Labor employer-sponsored healthcare, where most Americans get their health insurance, it is still a state-based issue. So, you know, Amazon can't just choose to go into Texas, where I live, or Ohio, and where you are, and say, hey, we're going to go to market here. Right? We're going to go to market here, and we're going to open up shop. They have to go get approval from every state department of insurance that they want to go through. So it can be done. It's going to take some time, but let's be clear. There are some regulatory barriers they're going to have to go through to get to where they would ultimately want to go if they want to take this to the open market.
Again, Seth Denson, president and co-founder of GDP Advisors, health insurance strategist. I'll tell you what, Amazon says we're going to do something. Everyone sits up and take notice because they're a serial innovator, and certainly going to be interesting. Hope it works out. Seth, thanks so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on.